to the United Nations, His Excellency, the President of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Mr. Hassan Rouhani, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Iran's President Hassan Rouhani addressed the annual opening of the United Nations General Assembly for the sixth consecutive time this Tuesday. Rouhani directed nearly his entire speech at the United States and at President Trump.
We have assembled here today as the world is suffering from recklessness and disregard of some states for international values and institutions. The message of our presence here is that the preservation of interest and security in the world in the least costly manner is solely possible through the cooperation of and coordination among countries. However, it is unfortunate that we are witnessing rulers in the world who think they can secure their interests better, or at least in the short term ride public sentiments and gain popular support through the fomenting of extremist nationalism and racism, and through xenophobic tendencies resembling a Nazi disposition, as well as through the trampling of global rules and undermining international institutions.
He went on to highlight how the U.S. is hoping to achieve security by denying others peace and security, and issued an indirect dig at President Trump's intelligence because of his rejection of multilateralism.
Confronting multilateralism is not a sign of strength. Rather, it is a symptom of the weakness of intellect. It betrays an inability in understanding a complex and interconnected world.
Rouhani's critique of the U.S. government's actions against Iran was meticulous, pointing out how the U.S. is violating international laws and norms.
The current administration seems determined to render all international institutions ineffectual. This government, having withdrawn from a multilateral agreement adopted by the Security Council in contravention of the rules and norms of international law, invites the Islamic Republic of Iran to bilateral talks, openly violates state obligations undertaken by its predecessor. On what basis and criteria can we enter into an agreement with an administration misbehaving such as this? Any talks should be within the framework and in continuation of the JCPOA and Security Council Resolution 2231, and not in a framework of breaching them and reverting to the past. The JCPOA is the outcome of more than a decade of diplomatic efforts and a period of intensive negotiations to resolve an artificial crisis. This document was unanimously approved by the Security Council Resolution 2231 and codified into an international obligation. Based on 12 consecutive reports of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, Iran has thus far complied with all of its commitments. However, the United States, from the very beginning, never remained faithful to its obligations.
He was unsparing in his assessment of the actions that the U.S. has undertaken against Iran, pointing out how President Trump threatened countries that would not play along with U.S. pressure on Iran.
Additionally, the United States also pressures other countries to violate the nuclear accord. And more dangerously, the United States is threatening all countries and international organizations with punishment if they comply with Security Council Resolution 2231. It is the first time in the history of the United Nations that such a general invitation to violation of law is coupled with threatening law-abiders with punishment. This is not just peculiar to the JCPOA, but a pattern that even applies to the U.S. approach to the International Criminal Court.
A crucial part of Rouhani's speech was calling U.S. sanctions against Iran a form of economic terrorism.
Unlawful unilateral sanctions in themselves constitute a form of economic terrorism and a breach of the right to development. The economic war that the United States has initiated under the rubric of new sanctions not only targets the Iranian people, but also entails harmful repercussions for the people of other countries. And that war has caused a disruption in the state of global trade. The United States' understanding of international relations is authoritarian. In its estimation, might makes right. Its understanding of power, not of legal and legitimate authority, is reflected in bullying and imposition.
Rouhani reiterated Iran's view of how international diplomacy ought to function and its role in the region.
What Iran says is clear. No war, no sanctions, no threats, no bullying. Just acting according to the law and the fulfillment of obligations. We support peace and democracy in the entire Middle East. We consider nuclear knowledge an imperative and nuclear weapons prohibited.
Finally, he also referred to the recent terror attack in the Iranian city of Avaz, where at least 10 people were killed last weekend.
As victims of terrorism in the past and today, we have always been and will always remain in the forefront of genuine confrontation with terrorism. Today, we mourn the martyrdom of tens of innocent people who were recently murdered on Saturday in cold blood by terrorists who shamelessly accepted responsibility from a number of Western capitals for their heinous crime. But why can the leaders of these terrorist operations, including the organization that has publicly claimed responsibility for Saturday's crime, live and operate freely in Western countries and even openly solicit funds? Are these activities not in violation of international counterterrorism norms? Why have the official state financiers of anti-Iranian terrorist organizations with a record of financing Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Al-Nusra not only been spared any punishment but are supported and armed?
Rouhani concluded with a review of other problem areas in the region, such as Syria, Yemen, Israel, Palestine, and the Persian Gulf.